sharing, yeah.
Right.
All right, mind your P's and Q's.
All right, everybody, we
We're
are
live.
live. Here we go. Thank you, everybody. We're called to order at 6 o'clock on October 22nd for the Scarborough Housing Alliance committee meeting. That's item one, our call to order. So thank you for being here. Item two, those present. Tom, you
Yes.
note
I'll
who
take
is
it.
present, and then we've got a member of the public who's here as well.
Yeah, we'll see if he wishes to speak when we get to that portion.
Great, thank you. Cruising right along, item three on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from September 24th. Folks had a chance to look at those, and is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, Zam.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? No, hearing none. All in favor? Approving the minutes?
Aye.
Oh, great. Thank you, Jean Marie. is next.
Sorry. Took me a minute to get in.
Thank you. Minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Item four is a discussion item about the implications of LD 1829. And there's some information in the packet put together by Phil Saucier at Bernstein Shur. And Tom, you want to
Yeah,
kind of walk us through
I
this?
don't profess to fully understand, or certainly not an expert on this, but this presentation was put together by Phil Saucier, who happens to be our town attorney. It was done in coordination with a GBCOG event that we had suggested would be, this topic would be a general interest to all of the members. So Phil put this together, presented back in late August. It was actually a meeting over there in the public safety building. You know, these slides are certainly things you can go through. What I will say is that there's rulemaking that's happening as we speak, and we're all anxious to see, because the devil will be in those details, frankly. But in kind of the nutshell of this is, this legislation stands on the shoulders and it works from so-called LD 2003, which was kind of the first attempt of the legislature, at least in modern history, to start to kind of subsume or step into housing policy. And this is a bit of a touchy subject, I'll just mention, for municipalities, because home rule is sacred to us in terms of communities making choices for themselves from a land use perspective, in particular, in terms of, you know, how they want to grow and what they want to allow, frankly. And you needn't look any further than Cape Elizabeth as an example, you know, compared to South Portland or Scarborough, for that matter. And what you see in terms of development patterns and allowances are direct relation to the comprehensive plans and their decades of land use. So what's touchy about this is the legislature now kind of reaching in and saying, I don't care what you guys decide on the local level. We think that housing policy is important enough that we're going to mandate through state law certain density and other allowances. I've had the occasion to meet with the bill's sponsor, Speaker Fecteau, on a couple of occasions. He is kind of unabashed in his support. He appreciates the home rule implications, and I tend to agree with him in some respects that, given left to our own devices, communities will often choose the less dense single-family white picket fence option, or worse than that, minimum lot sizes of acre or 2 acre or 10 acres in some communities. So I understand the impetus, and I think there's some rationale there, but it does feel a bit uncomfortable. So we still don't appreciate the full implications, but it does a number of things around density. It does a number of things of allowing projects of 5 lots or less to happen by right and not require planning board review, which is a pretty big change. And it reduces parking requirements. And so theoretically, you could have on an acre parcel of 4 lots, if you will. Actually more than that. It's minimum 5,000 acres. 5,000 square feet, excuse me, so. The density is, the indications are pretty extreme. So I don't have much, we're monitoring this closely, and again, rulemaking will be, very instructive in terms of actually how it will all work. So I don't intend to go through all these slides necessarily. I think there'll be an opportunity when rulemaking is done to maybe bring our planner in and other experts to advise you more particularly. My hunch is communities will find creative ways to get around this.
Is this gonna get tested in court?
That's a good question.
MAA's position on this, or did they?
I'm not to pass, and it was really around the home rule piece, let communities decide for themselves. I don't know that it's gonna go the court route. The speaker, for his part, is willing to listen to feedback. There's a number of changes that have been brought to him that I think you're gonna see some fix-up legislation in this next session. I don't have any expectation it's gonna change substantively. I think it's gonna, the lawyers have dug into this and said there's some pieces that don't quite line up here, which is not uncommon with a sweeping piece of legislation to do some fix-up. So there's a lot for us to understand. For us as a town, as we embark in yet another detailed growth discussion, this is certainly looming large, kind of in parallel. And I guess the only saving grace is that it doesn't take effect until next June, so we have some time to understand the implications, to start to make some adjustments as we wish. And it seems clear, as I try to read the tea leaves of the council, given input around, generally around growth issues. We've got a community survey that will be hitting the streets very shortly. There's a number of questions around growth. I expect similar results to what we've heard in the past. And I would expect this next council to start to dig into these things. I don't know that it's so far as modifying the comprehensive plan, but I think certainly some modification of zoning around density is not unexpected as we go forward. And so I think we started this conversation at this table last meeting. There'll be an opportunity for this group to be part of that conversation, and I encourage you to do that, because all of these things have impact and implications on affordable housing. That's no question.
Yeah, I think it's critical that we either formally have a position or as individuals go to that meeting of the fifth. Which is the next growth, so, right? We're gonna talk about.
No, not the 5th and 19th.
Oh, the
Be the 2nd November. meeting.
2nd November, okay, nice. But it comes up every meeting, every council meeting, growth has some implications to.
Sure.
growth. So, yeah.
I can tell you from the county point of view, we got a lot of pushback from municipalities, as you can well imagine, saying how wild they were about this. Some of the more rural areas, it's interesting, weren't as wild about it, but that's because there's some built-in limitations with sewer and wells by state law. So it's not quite as dense. And none of them have growth areas. So it's kind of like, so you're telling the areas, the towns that are already growing or have growth areas, oh, you got to pack more people in. And anyway, and as I said to Fecto, I said, yeah, show me the money, honey. You know, it's like you want us to do these things, but and the state's great for saying, oh, do this, do that, but then there's no financing, there's no money, there's no whatever. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it though is that there's a recognition that municipalities throughout the state have blocked what people want to do, right?
Right.
So it's not that something is desired and nobody wants to do it, and now we want to force people to do it. It's people want to be creating something, and municipalities are getting in the way. And you know, we need more housing.
Right. Oh,
the way to
absolutely.
get more housing without taking people's land is by letting the people who do want to do development do more development on the land. And so density is a nice way to do it. So it's not quite a show me the money thing where, you know, you need
Well,
to
it's always
do
money.
development. Yeah.
But the question I
It
have
always
is,
boils down to money. I got news for you.
can we work with Stacy and our House reps to get some relief? So to me, you can make an argument that communities that have been growing, Scarborough is
Mhm.
one of them, one of the largest, fastest growing communities, should get some relief from this, because we've already done our part. So
Right.
is any town actively in discussions with our representatives, to try to get some relief?
That feedback,
In the rulemaking?
yeah, not to our delegation,
Oh.
you know, as a formal suggestion, but I certainly have floated that idea to the speaker. And I think we probably need to be a bit more forceful or direct, and have the council take action, directing me to, you know, forward that as the official position. So that is an area of kind of discomfort for Scarborough, that we are leading the way, and that this one size fits all approach doesn't quite feel right for everybody.
Right.
So is somebody on the council taking that action item? It's been quite a while. We should be moving with that quicker, I think.
Fair point. Councilor Anderson, who was at our meeting last time, was the one is the one that is kind of most tuned into this, kind of pushed for this meeting where
Yeah.
the slides were produced. I should have mentioned, I kind of buried the lead. One of the things this legislation does, these density requirements happen in areas that have water and sewer and in your designated growth areas. So as Jean Marie says, for more sophisticated communities, and that's probably not the right word, but that have comprehensive plans and have in fact designated growth areas, were disproportionately affected.
Yeah.
Those other communities that don't have that and don't have
Right.
water or sewer, this is kind of a shrug of the shoulders. It was
Right.
likely effect on them. The other piece is this legislation removes our ability to have a rate of growth ordinance.
Right.
It removes it altogether, which is a pretty important tool in managing this, to make sure we can absorb the growth within our municipal services and so forth.
I will tell you that I doubt that any of Scarborough's legislators would be helpful, because they were all on board with this. And all on board with the recode in Portland and whatnot. So unless Kelly Murphy may be able to convince, and Ann Carney has a little slice of Scarborough, but Stacy was like all over this. She loves this. As was Sophie. So just so you'll know.
Party vote. Is that what it was?
It didn't even have a floor vote. It was voted
Right.
unanimously, and it was gavelled under consent order or something.
It was I'm sorry, this is going out live, but it was a shit show. Sorry. I'm the state chair for the county commissioners for the state and for the legislative policy committee, and yeah. Anyway, it was going whether we wanted it or not.
So
So
Bob, I think it actually enjoyed bipartisan support pretty strong. And my sense in talking to some of our local legislators, they didn't fully appreciate everything in this, and there was some 2,000 pieces of legislation, and this is a volunteer legislature, so I don't fault them per se.
they're not volunteer. They just got a big pay raise. What are you talking about?
This, like you say, it's built on the shoulders of LD 203,
That's right.
so it's been around a while. Is there a
As
consensus?
a policy concept, but I think this starts to really take.
Yeah, well, it was
On
passed,
steroids.
LD 2003 is not in this session, but it was in the prior session.
Reaches much deeper.
Right,
Yeah.
well, it codifies some of the things that we're talking about with that.
Fair enough.
So,
And as a real estate broker, because I've got two hats on this baby. You know, the MAR and the realtors are all, they're like, oh, this is great, you know, because it does create more housing. And I know that we need more housing, but there's a way to do it. It's actually toned down a little from how it was originally. But I mean, they were looking at doing it all over, and I was one of a number of people who are like, whoa, what about, you know, sewer and well rules and all that? Not everyone's septic. Not everyone's on a septic. In fact, the majority of Maine's on septic. They're not on sewers. I mean, come on. So anyway.
Is there a consensus in the Maine Municipal Association about like alternatives to this, or is it just, like, are you able to get a cohort of like folks that are in the same situation Scarborough is with a voice? Is there
I
something
think those
there?
conversations are happening. Typically, the Maine Municipal Association does not propose legislation, they're often reactive.
Yeah.
So this might be one where a fix-up bill is, or the framework of a fix-up bill is
Right.
advanced, so those conversations are active and underway.
Right, because I think the legislature, like Brian started to say, is reacting to some inaction. And it would be nice if someone could take, if there was an active
Mhm.
proposal by the municipalities that
Mhm.
might work better.
Yeah, just I should also mention, in the same vein, there was some companion legislation that proposed to remove, impact fees, which would be devastating. That is just a way of having new development pay its fair share. So we were able to kind of massage that, it's still in place, there are some restrictions that didn't exist before. So all of this, and there were some strange bedfellows that came together behind this, the development community, particularly the affordable housing developers. The realtor community for sure came out in support of it. And it steamrolled through the.
Tom, is there different communities I imagine would be impacted differently by pockets of this legislation.
Mhm.
And some of it looks like small lot impacts, some of it looks like big development impacts. Is there anybody that has or is planning to look at the most likely impact to Scarborough? Is this likely impact one part of town versus another? Is this gonna, is this,
Yeah,
a
certainly
general boogeyman that we're all worried about that really?
certainly the
is
sewer
not likely
areas
to-
are known and mapped, we know where that is. There is the potential for private development to pay for sewer expansion. It really has to be the right project that has the right financials to be able to fund that. The project, the land I'm thinking about is off Running Hill Road.
Mhm.
That's within a stone's throw, although there's a turnpike in between, but nothing money can't solve. But it's close enough to the existing system, and that project and that site is big enough to probably the financials may make sense for that kind of capital investment.
Mhm.
So speculating those sorts of things are hard, but we can, and I think the planning office has already done some of that within the existing
Yeah.
knowns. The other thing we can do locally is, this goes back to our comprehensive plan, is to look at our designated growth zones. And that is a way, and that I think that will be the angle many communities take, is a way to kind of neuter the potential effects of this. So I hope it doesn't backfire.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of my thoughts is if everybody's worried about new single family homes cropping up all around them, that only happens if there's land to have them crop up on, and if that is happening in 5% of Scarborough rather than 85% of
Mhm.
Scarborough, then it's a little less of an issue than might be going on in our heads.
I think the larger threat, in our local conversation has nothing to do with LD 1829, is what appears to be an aversion to multifamily,
Mhm.
kind of vertical structures. Everyone keeps pointing to the 8 corners, probably just because it's in your face. You see it. We used that as a case study in the first growth workshop, just to say this project was built by right, didn't require any special treatment, no zoning changes. It looks the way it looks because that's what our words is required to look like.
Yeah.
So that opens some eyes, I think, but I think that's the conversation that we'll have locally, is whether we allow multifamily as extensively as we do today. And that is where I think we make the biggest gains in affordable housing, is going up.
Yep.
That's where the economy is.
Well,
Right.
that's what that whole recode thing is alleged to help with in Portland, because one of the big things on that is to create taller buildings with density within the buildings and no parking, which kills me. Because I don't know where they think people are going. And just because you build big buildings with no parking doesn't mean you're getting transit. But everyone knows what I think about that. So
Yeah. Well, there's a new project right on Dunstan, well, Dunstan Heights, it's called.
Yeah.
So I listened to the planning board, and I think somebody in this community, we should also be aware of all the other committee's activities, I think. It's one of the things people don't know what the other hand is doing. There's a 24-unit housing project, just at the sketch level, first meeting.
Right.
Affordable workforce housing, 24 units, 12 studios, 12 single, one bedrooms. Right off of Broad Turn.
But I don't believe it's deed restricted. Effectively, it may be workforce by
Yeah.
way, which is pretty
Well,
much market.
The Harold Burnham.
Mhm.
He said it's affordable housing for people making between $17 and $25,000 an hour. I don't know if that's deeded, but that's what he says it's for. Yeah,
No,
I think that it will be, it's not deed restricted, but I think
Okay.
effectively.
He's trying to, well, he chooses to.
And he's got a track record. He owns other
He was
units.
the one behind the diner, right?
Yes, part of Dunstan Crossing. So I think, he knows the cost to build. He built that building 5 years ago, knows what rents go for. So I think, given his experience, I think he probably has a pretty good handle on what it's gonna cost him to build it and what he can charge for rent. And I think effectively, though they may be market, I think they probably fit very comfortably in our band of workforce, frankly.
is he gonna need any contract zoning or anything?
No.
Or is it-
He
he can do what he
Said
wants?
he might need a setback variance. Because
Well,
it's too far setback, it's a long narrow driveway.
yeah, yeah,
Up onto the knoll and then
Right.
goes to sit on the knoll.
okay.
So. That was my question to this committee, do we take a position on that kind of thing, is that our role? If we want workforce housing, we want to support that kind of development. Do we take a position?
Well, that's why,
We've been a resource for people going through the process, and I mean, I would hope that Autumn uses us as
Yeah.
a reference, but I don't think we actively look for projects to.
My only concern, and I have every reason to believe Mr. Burnham when he says what his initial rents will be, but without a deed restriction, there's no guarantee. So I think
right,
probably, not dangerous, but, probably advised for this group to have much comment on something that we have no assurance for.
Yeah.
well, you could, but I mean, I would be happy to log on as a member of this group, but just as a citizen saying, well, if they need any quid pro quo or contract zoning or whatever, we can give you that if you give us this, that,
Well, and I think the other thing for us to remember is we're the Housing Alliance, right? Not just the Affordable Housing Alliance.
Yep.
Well, that's what I'm
Right,
saying, is
so,
like, what is our role?
yeah.
Do we have a role? What is our role?
We do it all.
in This kind of, yeah. That's why I asked. the
We're
question.
omnipresent.
Zam, historically, this body has not, provided comment generally on housing matters.
Unless asked, right?
Unless asked, and certainly on affordable housing matters, we have.
Yeah.
It's a fair question.
which to me, again, I'm the big workforce housing person. I'm wondering if we should be a little more outspoken, because that is such a gap in housing everywhere. There's workforce.
Well, I think we should have been more vocal on the flea market. Because getting no positive feedback on that, and even though the Housing Alliance approved that or made the recommendation.
Right.
That was dropped pretty much, as far as I can tell. So they didn't hear from us, they didn't hear from anybody who supported that. They only heard from detractors. So I think as a committee, we need to get more vocal when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so LD 229 is, a big piece of our future. I think it's good for us to be aware, be following, and over time, be ready to be talking about it. So it will affect us.
I'll do my part to keep you aware of where rulemaking is, and if it serves you, we can have our planner come and give you a far more professional,
Yeah,
thorough
I appreciate that,
overview than I'm
No, I
capable of.
appreciate.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
And Tom, I'll, if I hear anything or anything comes up before us as the county.
Yep.
With the legislative, because I see a
Right.
lot of stuff too, I'll let you know.
You know where to find me.
Right?
Yeah, I do.
Next item is Amy, you referenced the, the flea market development or whatever it was called, Marsh View or Marsh View. One of the things that kind of kept coming up in conversation from, I guess detractors, was that, housing like that maybe isn't always beneficial on the first order to people within Scarborough. Which kind of leads to this question, what are the housing issues of people in Scarborough, and what's the problem to solve, right? And what's the problem to solve for people here? And yes, was kind of kicking around that question and was reminded of this housing study that was done a long time ago. And wanted to talk about that tonight, and I think it is part of the packet as well, and looks like it was done such a long time ago that it may be worth updating it to see, it back a long time ago in 2005 told us what the housing issues of Scarborough were, and actually I think helped hatch this committee, and it sort of follows that maybe there are different problems these days, and it'd be good to see how far we've come from that initial set of circumstances, and what we're doing, what doesn't need to be done anymore, what we should make sure we don't stop doing, and maybe what we want to keep doubling down on. I know I hear from people, and we talked about it tonight, we've quote unquote done our part, or we're leaders in the region, because there's this sense that we've got a lot of affordable housing here, or more than others, and it builds for me this curiosity of how much of what do we have? Are we serving seniors well, or are we serving families well? Are we serving high income, low income families? Are we serving low income families? And there's kind of a whole spectrum, both age wise and even income wise, within the affordable universe that I think kind of merits us looking at and deciding, or evaluating, how we are doing, and then deciding resources and the appetite to serve, or try to serve. And so I wanted to have that conversation, and Tom, you can probably.
Yeah,
give us
just
some
a
more
quick history,
history.
they might be interested in. This alliance was created back in 91, so it was around
right.
for 12 or 15 years before this was done. And the alliance was created because of a state law requirement regarding affordable housing.
Sort of required.
We were required. Title 30A, Chapter 302, blah, 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 required it. So what it did in the first decade, I don't know, but I suspect there were a lot of similar conversations, or a lot of folks just like yourself. And presumably they got to a point where, rather than just talking about it or speculating what's going on, let's actually see if we can get our arms around it. And there's an executive summary that lays out kind of the scope of the work that was maybe the questions that the committee at the time had. I have no doubt that a lot of the data that came out of this wound its way probably for the next decade and longer, and made its way into all sorts of changes through the zoning ordinance and by way of density and fractionalization and all sorts of other things. So I think, Brian, the way you framed it was terrific, is that this group would be great to have a conversation around what are the questions we have now, and use that conversation to help kind of sketch out a scope of work that we could hire a professional consultant to help us work on.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally that would even include some recommendations that are well beyond this committee's abilities. But I think having it contained in the same document that provides the support data to also suggest what to do to solve those problems.
I I found it very interesting when I looked at like the median sales price. Median sales price then for Scarborough was 301, now it's over 800. But that being said, this report talks about how most people can't afford to live in Scarborough. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, household income has gone up, but you know, is that divide greater than it was there? You know, is the
Yeah.
affordability quotient
Yeah.
more challenging?
So,
yeah.
Probably is. I mean, it'd be great to kind of get some foundational data around those points.
Yeah. And you know, there's also this thing I'm kind of curious with how people grapple with this is, I think it's a little bit human to want things that are nicer than you can afford sometimes, right? Like, you know, I really love the nice sneakers at the store.
Right.
But get them, right? Is when we say you can't afford.
Somehow your kids get them.
Yeah, right.
As the coach says, they need it.
Right, yeah, you know, really love to have the house with the granite countertops, but. And you know, how much when people say we can't afford to live in Scarborough, is it that there's the, yeah, this is. Super, you know, super duper, but we can only afford super, or you know, what, how much of that dynamic is going on and how much of it is a different dynamic of accessibility? You know, how much of it is that human nature to just want more and to stretch, and how much of it is a real access issue, right?
It strikes me this data could also help address what I think is a fairly legitimate response we've heard, and it's been mentioned today, that we've done our part. Well, have we actually made a difference? You know,
Right.
in spite of the fact that we're leading our peers, are we actually, you know, making a difference over time?
Yeah,
We move the needle at all.
yeah,
I think that would be a great thing to answer.
Yeah, so my question would be, okay, we get the data, then what do we do with it? What are we trying to solve? What action can we take
Mm,
once we have that information?
well, I think one action would be if we find, we've done our part with senior housing. Yeah, we've done oodles of it.
oh, yeah.
But we've got no family housing in town. That might cause us, when we're being asked to support TIFs, or CEAs, to say, well, we're gonna lean more towards family housing projects.
Well, we
rather
already
than
know
senior.
that. Right,
I don't know, but we've got our gut that says that, but we would have, you know, some sort of.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
other thing, the council's interested in creating a housing policy, and we're kind of trying to gain traction as to how to even advance that conversation. It's hard to get your arms around. Seems to me that would be a natural extension of some of the data here is, you know, take what Brian just said, if we have enough senior housing, we really need these other things, those could help inform what your housing policy is. That's exactly the kind of work this group can do, to recommend to council that they consider. And then it will take, you know, multiple actions through complicated ordinances, to actually affect those changes.
right.
I think a lot of these things apply. If you read Bruce Mayberry's summary at the end, talks about. Affordable housing ostensibly, but it's like, these are all like zoning ordinance provisions and. Growth management policy decisions, these are all critical to housing policies. Now, it doesn't have to be the substrate of affordable housing, it's. These are all things that affect housing.
I know one thing I'd be interested in seeing is how many rental units do we have that are available? And has that increased over time per, you know, 1,000 or whatever with living within Scarborough? And how many of them are, I hate to use the term affordable because that means one thing but that the average person could afford to be in any of them. The other thing I really want to see the demographics, the shift in demographics.
Yeah,
Don't we have that, and did we get that? from
I know,
state?
but I'd like to see it all in one report as to what demographic owns the houses. How many
Yeah.
are own them and live in them year round?
You know, we asked one question, sort of, anecdotally, I think of this, in one of these meetings, we all say affordable housing's good. Right, and sort of leave it at that, but, what is it that's good about it? Why do we keep doing it? Like, and I think that's a harder question to answer, other than you're supposed to, right? We do it, everybody says you're supposed to, so we do it. But when you dig into it a little bit, some people talk about, benefits in the school system, to having an economically diverse school population, and benefits of, reduction in bullying, and, benefits and, academic achievement, and benefits to empathy, and benefits to, in the workforce, to
Right.
a broader workforce, and it would be really interesting to try to capture some of those things, and to see, both beyond the, the sticks and bricks that we've built, if there's been any, I don't know if there's a way to back measure, but if there's been any sort of movement in, establishing what those, what the good things about affordable housing are, or what the good things about a diverse housing portfolio are in a town. And then if we've achieved them, and that could bring into the conversation, things like the school department, things like SEDCO, and things, like a pretty diverse group of stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, just, who's working in our town and how many of them can afford to live here.
Well, that's the other, I think, and I think of all those things, I think there's strength in diversity, I feel that way. Also, I think there's benefits to having the people who work in town live in town. And that a lot
Yeah.
of teachers and firefighters and police officers can't afford to live in town, even at the 60% rate,
For sure.
So that's another benefit. I mean, if you said to somebody, we're gonna build this affordable housing project behind your house, they're gonna automatically have a certain image. We
Yeah.
talked about this last meeting, put a face to that, put the firefighter, the teacher, whatever, instead of that perception that, it's a project for people who, whatever they think about those people, right?
Well, those people, yeah, quote unquote.
I think a study is great. I'm feeling like we're at a real crossroads right now in town. And there's the whole growth discussion. There's talk about a moratorium by some residents. There's talk about rezoning. My question is, what can we do right now? How can we help that process? Right? Not to say we don't need to do a study. My question is, in the next 3-4 months, there's gonna be some action taken that will have long-term implications.
Yeah.
I agree.
Including short-term rental. That whole issue also affects housing. And I think we should be involved with that discussion.
Yeah, staff and council, our position is, there's been this demand almost for us to do something immediately. A moratorium is kind of just a great example of a way to make it stop.
Yeah.
And I understand why someone would ask for that, but it's not that easy. You've got to understand
Yeah.
what you stopped and why, and use your time wisely while the moratorium is in place to change something. So our approach is to be very deliberate. People appreciate that this is complicated stuff that doesn't deserve kind of knee-jerk reactions, and when it comes to moratorium, they're time limited. So I think keep your powder dry and use it when you need to, but don't overuse it. So
Doesn't state law, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overspeak you. Doesn't state law, aren't they very specific about when you can put moratoria?
you have to have a stated
You have to have
reason.
very specific reasons. It can only be for a specific
Yeah.
amount of time.
Yeah, so the process we've laid out is intentionally, to be educational, but also kind of deliberate and methodical, that over the course of the fall is to have a series of workshops that kind of build on each other. All of which is to, in my immediate audience is the 7 members of council. Everyone else is there to come along for the ride. But our hope is to educate the council on these issues. So when they sit down first of the year to do their goal setting for the next year, which is where I think the heavy lifting will happen over the next year.
Mm,
They're informed by this kind of background.
Mhm.
And I have no doubt that a number of growth related goals will be in front of them. I just want to make sure that they make informed decisions so they're goals that are attainable and appropriate.
Yeah.
Wish me luck.
lots of-
Thinking that I'm biting my tongue. I'm not saying anything.
So.
If you're biting your
let's-
tongue, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
About to fall off.
Yeah.
but
So-
Anyway.
So in terms of scoping something like this out, is there appetite from the group to pursue an update to this type of report
Yes.
and building this out, and
Yep.
do folks maybe wanna, or would folks be open to looking at the report between this meeting and next meeting and making
Yep.
some recommendations to, scope items and,
Maybe a simple way, the exercise is just for all to think about what questions we want answers to. I
Yeah.
think we've made some assumptions, but
Yeah.
we ought to it'd be great to kind of validate that or not, right?
Yeah.
No, what we're thinking about actually isn't supported by the data.
yeah.
So I think that might be a simple way of easing
That's
into
great.
this. What are the questions? I'm curious with you guys, are there consultants out there that are available and capable of this kind of work? Okay,
Good question.
Bruce is not.
yeah.
Right.
But Brown, I mean, I was on this group when this was done,
So were you?
Oh, really?
Oh,
working with Bruce Mayberry on this when it was done, and I found it interesting because. What he was talking about, I was kind of introspective about like how much of that actually happened.
Yeah.
Are we gonna repeat it, for the sake of repeating it?
Yeah.
And I'd like not to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And what found its way into, the process and what was left out,
Yeah,
why was it left out? I'm more I'm really interested to see what would the roll-up be for
yeah,
what 2025 looks like,
Yeah.
because it's frustrating to just go ahead and create another study
Throw it on
without
the
having
shelf.
action items and short-term action items,
Yeah.
stuff you can,
Right.
because I don't want to come back in 20 years and see another study.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just, it's by some other capable
Mhm.
person, so.
Tom, do you think while we're doing what things we're curious about, would Autumn or somebody on her staff be able to go through this and highlight what made it to our new ordinances? Is
Yeah,
that
I
a
don't,
manageable exercise?
they're certainly capable of doing that. I don't have a sense of how heavy that lift is.
Okay.
Even a thought, excuse me, even
Yeah.
a thought, it's like, if they read this, how much of this is still relevant? How
Yeah.
much of that are they
Right.
hearing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much of it enters into their,
Yeah.
their
Even
real
if-
life?
Even if it's, here, take 2 or 3 hours and give us this off
Yeah.
the top of your head,
Right.
right? Cause she knows what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
She knows, I think off the top of her head, she could get 80% of
Right.
Yeah.
the impact.
Yeah.
oh, I agree. I agree with that too.
That'd be helpful.
yeah,
And if she said stuff just doesn't work,
yeah,
that's okay too,
Yeah.
we can move on, but take it off the list.
that's right.
So there are plenty of people to answer your question, this,
Okay.
plenty of people, and it's really kind of cool to have the baseline. To roll
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, we've got. Yeah, we've got this data to kind of compare.
Same stuff is available probably in more
Yep.
detail.
Yeah, and it's remarkable how
I know,
similar
I know.
we're still, the state we're still in.
Yeah,
Some things
Yeah.
change.
There's gonna be a lot that hasn't changed.
yeah.
Okay, well, if we could all
Yeah,
have a little homework,
Yeah.
and hopefully it's not too difficult, but to think about the questions that you'd like answers to, or to verify or validate.
yeah, and then I'll say, for extra credit, you asked like, what have we done since? And what's the impact? Yeah, look, the appendix to all that is, it'd be great to know, like, how many, I don't know if it's how many units, how many families have we housed that normally wouldn't have been housed but for this work? And here's a nice starting point, since this study came out, or since the alliance was created or since some line in the sand, and it'd be nice to sort of start counting and graphing that.
And who's done it? You know, like there's some noise in this report about a Scarborough Housing Authority.
Yeah.
And that kind of probably moved on beyond that.
Yep.
And you know, the market seems to be pretty efficient around this housing. So if the things line up and we incentivize or give somebody a direction, they're gonna execute on that.
I will tell you that the real estate market is slowing down. You've probably seen some articles. I experience it every day. Houses are now on the market for 30 days or more. There've been many price drops. So we've reached a ceiling. This is Jean Marie's opinion. I'm not backed up by any economist at the moment, but I'm sure I will.
We don't need.
It's finally come to Maine, let's put it that way. It's been going on every place else, and now it's finally come to Maine. So just so you'll know. One thing that I happen to think of, and I think about it frequently since I am now of that age, is like, what's it gonna look like in 20 years when us boomers are no longer around, or we're in nursing homes or wherever the heck we are?
You're gonna last forever, Jean Marie.
Oh God, yeah, no, I know that's not gonna happen, but you know what I'm saying? Is there any way of projecting? Because
Why
all
are you worried about that?
I'm
You
not,
won't know the difference.
I'm just saying, there's gonna be a lot of housing available potentially. But it depends on, that's why I'm saying the demographics and are people still moving to Maine, but maybe that's too big a picture. I'm just curious.
I mean, you're seeing who's moving to Maine, right? In your industry.
Well, they're moving to Maine for a couple of months a year, paying big bucks to take up housing that could be used by somebody. But yeah,
Traffic, Jean Marie, that's good for growth.
That's good, there's no impact on the schools.
Or traffic.
Only
well,
3 months.
true, that's true. And they are paying big taxes, some of them, but it's frustrating. I mean, it's great for me personally, my pocketbook, but geez, crow. It's like, what the heck?
All right, well, that was good. Got homework, we've got extra credit opportunities, and got something for our next agenda. This is
Yeah.
great. See about 3 for. So item 6, we've got new town council legislation that extricates me from this committee soon. So we'll need somebody else to sit in the seat. Anybody been thinking about leadership opportunities and aspirations?
Not me.
I thought about it, it's no.
No.
You know what you do is we name someone who didn't show up for the meeting. That's
All right.
That's
Or
why.
else we're gonna have to rely on a unfortunate absence to nominate somebody for chair of the committee. But continue thinking about it, I'm happy to talk to anybody about role, and Tom will too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say next meeting is the last one before I think we name somebody new, right? So
Yes.
Are you getting termed off, Brian?
When is that? Our next meeting is gonna be December.
Our next meeting will be Thanksgiving night.
Yeah. Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yes, I am, Jean Ray.
Yeah, they didn't.
Legislatively termed
they didn't
off,
change
Jean Marie.
that. I
That's
know. I
Yeah.
tried.
Feel like I'm targeted. All right, so that's that. Item 7, public comment. We've got a virtual public attendee and a live or a in-person public attendee.
You guys got a divide and conquer.
They're both live.
To come, but my father is here to help us with our house, so
Oh.
it was disallowed.
You could go.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think I've heard a lot of talk about helping different sections of the community. I'd be really interested to see a more holistic approach to that. My husband's a clammer. We were at the clam committee recently asking for people who've been in the town for 10 years and who have had a license for 5 to be able to move out of town, at least for some time, so that they could hopefully wait for housing to kind of catch up. And that did not have a positive reception, which I think is really interesting because it feels like we're very separated and siloed in terms of what we're trying to accomplish and for whom. So I would love to have some clarity, I think, on, at least for me, the next generation, but like, what does it look like to support young people in this town? And I think housing is a big component of that, but it's also not the only component. And I would love to see kind of that holistic approach to how do we incorporate young people in housing and in employment and in municipal policy decisions and in municipal life in general. I think my generation is kind of the disconnected generation to some extent, where we have a lot of time in front of the phone and maybe not a lot of time connected. And I don't think Scarborough in and of itself is going to solve that problem, but I would love to see a little bit more focus and thought behind how to incorporate them. And I'd be curious to know how many young people are here. My sense is not a ton. And I think of the folks that are, I think maybe they're concentrated in specific small areas within town, which is interesting. To Jean Marie's point about, what it looks like to get older here, we've talked a lot about housing. I haven't heard a lot about transit lately, which is surprising to me. I would love to hear more about transit. I would love to have transit options. The other thing that strikes me listening to these conversations, because I have had occasion to look at housing law and policy on a few different fronts, and I also own property here and in another town that's a long-term rental, people live there. But that I think, we talk about like whether or not it's serving Scarborough residents, and it strikes me that is such a moving target, and it's interesting deciding, have we done our fair share? I understand that we want the town to not look like a strip mall, like in its entirety, right? You need it to have some shape and form and substance that makes sense for the flow of traffic and life and livability. At the same time, we know that it's a lot cheaper and more efficient and more environmentally friendly to build in density rather than trying to scale rural areas that don't have infrastructure that are now building more roads and more parking lots and more whatever else. So I don't have a solution for that problem, but it does strike me that what defines a Scarborough resident is kind of a moving target. And if people want to live here, I don't know how do you slice that, where you're like, well, they want to live here, but they're in Portland right now, so they're not.
Right.
I don't want to say they're not important, but kind of, we want to prioritize somebody that happens to live in a different zip code currently. I do understand the sentiment of, you can't just rack them and stack them like sardines in here. So I know there's a challenge there, but it does strike me that housing is a state problem in many respects right now. And I think growing sustainably is important, but also I think what defines a resident is getting more and more fluid as people get more and more transient.
Sorry, just a name and address for the record,
Rebecca, 112 Maple Ave,
right?
and that was all. Sorry, long comment, but.
Just quickly on transit, your point's very appropriate. Council did put money in the budget this year. We have had active ongoing negotiations with Metro. And there'll be a meeting on November 15th at the Public Safety Building. And what we're talking about is expanding fixed route service, which is essentially Route 1 with a couple of other pockets. But what's really exciting is instituting a brand new so-called micro transit, which would serve not the entirety of our town, but a specified geography, kind of where the critical mass exists. And for lack of a better way to explain it, but it's subsidized Uber, so it's on demand. I need to go to Hannaford, or I need to go to my doctor's appointment. I live at 112 Maple Avenue, and it's like a $1 or $2 fare. So it's intended to provide just intra Scarborough service ideally, you could, from that service, connect to the fixed route and go on to points beyond. So, we're starting down that road.
And that's,
Tom, is that income limited or age limited, or is it for anybody?
For anybody.
Pretty cool.
Oh.
Interesting, they're piloting this in Falmouth. One of the biggest.
Oh, okay,
One
yeah,
of the biggest demographic that they're serving that they didn't expect to is high school kids, because
Oh,
the
it's-
school
yeah.
campus is kind of outside of where the commercial strip is.
Yeah.
And so, one of the biggest groups they're serving are teenagers getting
That's
from
awesome.
the school campus down to Route 1.
That's great.
how's that funded?
There's a federal money, for our pilot, actually, the Maine Turnpike Authority is putting $3.5 million into starting this up for us. Not out of the good graces of their heart, they're required by law to 5% of their total revenue to support DOT directed projects. And DOT has directed this as one of those projects.
That's the Route 1 transit, right? That one? Or is that microtransit?
Yeah, that's a different provider. That's part of the problem we have. We don't have the critical mass to support one provider, yet there's
Right.
6 or 7 transit providers in our region, which doesn't make a lot of sense from economies of scale. So it's federal money, state money, and it will be a local contribution. If it's successful, we would be we buy into the metro system.
one other question is, shouldn't assume, is it going to be just in the more populous areas of Scarborough, i.e. it's not gonna be out where I live in Western Scarborough?
Probably not, Jean Marie. I
Which,
mean,
where it's desperately needed, yeah, why would you do that? But that's okay.
but that's what the meeting is, the conversation starting on the 15th is to start to understand where the demand is.
Yeah.
They already have a sense of that based on density and kind of where the people live. and
Yeah.
Where the are likely to be that they
Right.
want to. So that's kind of the starting point, but I think we have the ability to shape that geography a bit. But
Okay.
I don't think North Scarborough or West Scarborough is gonna be served by this service. It just won't make it efficient enough.
I know, and that's where all the traffic is, but that's okay. No, whatever.
All right,
I see.
and we have another,
There's no-
we have another
there's no
public
traffic
comment.
on Route 1.
We have another public comment.
You should be able to speak. There you go.
Hi. So I just wanted to, Andy Blanchard, 112 Maple Ave. I just wanted to add that I'm probably in the minority on this standpoint, but I think 1829 could be a good idea. I mean, I think, I don't know that it'll necessarily have this effect, but it feels like it could potentially promote building smaller multifamilies in, areas that, as long as they have water and sewer. I am not sure that it'll actually have that desired effect, but from that standpoint, it seems like a good idea, like as a way of, I think that's realistic. I don't know if it's realistic, but it's a way to potentially afford prices in Scarborough, as if you could rent out a couple apartments or whatever, if you could afford to buy a couple apartments. But yeah, I'm kind of trailing off here, but
No,
It's
point.
interesting, it kind of might, with some of the uncertainty of development, it makes it so that you need to do a bigger and bigger development to make it profitable enough to be worth.
Right.
Let's not get bad, and when you can reduce the risk, it makes it worthwhile and okay to do a smaller deal. And so one of the unintended consequences, or one of the unintuitive consequences might be that we see, smaller and less scary developments that, look less like what we see over at Eight Corners, and might fill our community with more palatable deals.
Yeah, that's
That
the
might be
one.
kind of nice.
That's just one of the observations I've had in every growth discussion I've had where people are really passionate about slowing growth. Multifamily and really vertical construction.
Yeah.
I think it evokes, it is a, you know, more of an urban feel and look. When you couple that with our design standards that require the
Yeah.
projects to be fronted on the road rather than deep on the lot. You know, it's interesting, the Jocelyn Place project. I've never heard a complaint about that, because no one sees
Right.
it.
Yeah.
You gotta drive into its parking
Right.
lot. And Marshview, I think, was a victim of the same. It was gonna be a
Highly visible.
four-story
Yeah.
structure right on Route 1. It
Problem was you could see it.
Yeah.
But
But that aversion, I think we've got to recognize that.
I wish more people would drive through, so I call it downtown Falmouth now. So they could see what it looks like, some of what it's proposed. I mean, it's a huge change from what Falmouth was when I was a kid growing up, but hey, change is inevitable. But I like it. I really like
What is downtown Falmouth now? Route 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, Route 1. Yeah, to me, it's Route 1.
Downtown Scarborough.
Yeah.
I
I want to put a plug in for Eight Corners. I think that is.
like it too.
I do too.
I think it
I just-
actually adds to that. I mean, you look across the street, there's equipment, and I mean, that compared to what's around there, that is a beautiful.
Wish they would have a
I
207.
could-
Well, no,
I gotta
There's
but-
tell
nothing
you-
wrong with that. Some people, it's a personal preference, so
It is.
I don't
Yeah.
think we should.
And they're not wrong in their opinion,
Right.
is just as you're not
No.
wrong.
Exactly.
No,
Well,
they
my-
are wrong.
A lot of people saying that's an example of where we went wrong. I don't think it is.
No.
I
No.
just think that all those other corners are gonna change now that that population's there. And
Well,
with
my-
schools down the
my
street, I
nine-
just worry about traffic. There, you know, that's.
Well, my 91-year
Close to that, so. but-
Hold on, G Ray.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard with the delay. Anyway, my 91-year-old mother-in-law who grew up in the house I live in, she's back living in Scarborough and has been for a while. She thought that what was done at Eight Corners was awesome because she belonged to the church that used to be there, and they, you know, it was called the Buggy House Church, and there were a number of actually farmhouses sort of around there. And she's like, those woods haven't been there that long. They were either fields or there were houses there. I don't know what people are talking about. So there you
You're
go.
91 years
It's all relative. Exact, time flies. Time flies.
Those
Thanks for
are only 80 years old?
Yeah.
I see we have
Oh,
an additional
we
person.
got a
Susan,
new
are you
attendee.
interested in providing public comment? I see no hand, so
Oh. All right, well then we've got one more item on the agenda.
Big motion adjourned.
Oh, all right. there it is. Adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Time.
Everybody,
Thank you, G Ray.
Thank you, Jim Marie.
you're
Andy,
welcome.
get to work.
We're ready
Get
to
back to work.
homework. Yeah.
Bye.